بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum. The Lahore Ahmadiyya community welcomes you to its broadcasts. This is the series Reflections on the Holy Quran, and this is broadcast number 211 in that series. And these days we are discussing chapter 2, verse 86 of the Holy Quran, and this is the second broadcast in which we discuss this verse. Just to remind you that the Lahore Ahmadiyya community was created by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib of Qadian. He taught us that although some Muslims believe that another prophet will come after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, this is untrue, because the Holy Quran says that the Holy Prophet was Khatamun Nabiyyin, and the Holy Prophet explained this term by saying, La Nabiyya Ba'di, there is no prophet after me. So no prophet will come after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, whether it is a new prophet or an old prophet, no one will come. Similarly, Muslims are keen to declare each other kafirs or heretics and out of the fold of Islam and so on. But Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad taught that the Holy Prophet had said, if one reciter of the kalima says to another reciter of the kalima that you are not a Muslim, you are a kafir, you are a heretic, then it is the person saying these words who is the heretic. So strict was the Holy Prophet in regard to this. In the same way, some people say Ayah Rajam is missing from the Holy Quran. Some people say Surah Walayat is missing from the Holy Quran. Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib taught that nothing is missing from the Holy Quran. All the prophetic revelation sent by Allah to the Holy Prophet Muhammad is with us in the form of the Holy Quran. Nothing has been left out. Many people believe that some verses of the Holy Quran are abrogated, cancelled, no longer applicable. But Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib of Qadian told us that no verse of the Holy Quran was, is, or ever shall be abrogated. These are God's commands on how humanity should live. So how can they become abrogated? And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad also taught us that whereas other Muslims believe that jihad means you take a weapon, a sword or a gun, and you push a non-Muslim to the ground and sit on his chest, and if he doesn't recite the kalima, you kill him. Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad taught that is not jihad. The Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained what jihad is. When returning from a battle, he commented that Muslims were returning from the minor jihad to the major jihad. And then he explained that the major jihad, Jihad Akbar, is to control your inner desires, especially negative sentiments and emotions, greed, and jealousy, and envy, and wanting to lie to get away with something. That is Jihad Asghar. That is Jihad Akbar. Jihad Asghar is fighting. So let us turn to the Holy Quran. As I said, we are looking at chapter 2, verse 86 of the Holy Quran. So let's have a look at that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أولئك الذين اشتروا الحياة الدنيا بالآخرة ولا يخفف عنهم العذاب ولا هم ينصرون. These are they who buy the life of this world for the hereafter, in exchange for the hereafter. So their punishment shall not be lightened, nor shall they be helped. As I explained yesterday, that Ulaika allazina simply means those are the ones, they. And then we looked at the two words, but I missed out the word haya. So today we'll have a look at the word haya and what it signifies and what it means. As I always explain to you, Arabic language is based on triliteral consonants, which are called roots, and the root for this word is ha, ya, ya. Ha, ya, ya. And it occurs in different forms, in fact 12 derived forms. So it appears 184 times in these 12 derived forms. Or to put it another way, 12 words with different meanings with this root are found in the Holy Quran. For example, 76 times as hayat, 51 times as ahya, 24 times as hayy, and so on. Once as Hayawan. And so let's look at a few occurrences in the sense of living. You will live or might live or so on. And قال فيها تحيون وفيها تموتون ومنها تخرجون. So that is chapter 7 verse 25. ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا. Will live. Chapter 87 verse 13. Interestingly, it's also a derivative is also used to mean to greet, to welcome. وَإِذَا حُيِّتُمْ بِتَحِيَّةٍ. You are greeted. فَحَيُّ بِأَحْسَنَ. Then greet. This is chapter 4 verse 86. And in sense of the life that we understand, كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم. It says he gave life. ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون. He will give you life. كذلك يحيي. The last one is chapter 2 verse 73, and before that it was chapter 2 verse 28. قال أن يا يحيي هذه الله بعد موتها. Chapter 2 verse 259. And after that he'll bring you back to life. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. That is saving chapter, saving life. Chapter 5 verse 32. And then يَسْتَحْيِي, which means to be embarrassed, to be ashamed. Chapter 2 verse 26. وَيَسْتَحْيُونَ, letting live. This is chapter 7 verse 141. As a noun, Allahu la ilaha illahu al hayyul qayyum. Famous verse, you see it written in many, particularly mosques, but many other places as well. So this is everlasting, ever living. A being that is not subjected to vagaries of time and so on. Then as an adjective, the living thing, kulla shay'in hayyin. Another form of life which in Urdu is restricted, the word is restricted to animals. Well, we are all animals, but animals excluding the human animal. Hayawanu, the life. Chapter 29 verse 64. And then as a noun, hayat. Zalika mata'ul hayatid dunya wallahu andahu husnul ma'ab. Chapter 3 verse 14. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. Chapter 3, verse 185. Life of this world. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا, of the world. So this is the word hayat, meaning life. وَفَرِحُوا بِالْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Chapter 13, verse 26. This is the most common form, and there are other forms. It can mean a snake. Hayyatun. That's aya. And then my living, the famous verse, chapter 6, verse 16. Qul inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin. My life, my death, everything is for Allah. Live for Him, I die for Him. And then, as I said, it can also mean a greeting, and it can also mean shyness, embarrassment. We've already seen. فَجَاءَتْهُ إِحْدَاهُمَا تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ. So here you can, from the sound you can see the word haya, alastihya. So that means shyness. And the interesting thing is this, that as I said many times, no doubt I'll say it many times more, when we are looking to see what Arabic words mean, even Arabic grammar, the standard by which we judge things is the Holy Quran. So we say, this word is used to mean this in this verse of the Holy Quran, so that proves that this word means that. Then we're talking about hayat, which is life, living things. And of course, we have in science a definition of living things, of hayat. For example, we say if something is a living thing, then it needs food to sustain it. Without it, it won't function. Well, that applies to humans, and that applies to animals. And that applies to plants. But that also applies to a car. Unless you put some petrol or diesel or gas or whatever it is in the tank, it's not going to move. And then people say, okay, living things also excrete waste. Fair enough. But then a car excretes waste as well. This is why you have an exhaust, and you have exhaust fumes, which is the waste that comes from the engine. You can say, while a living thing moves, well, a car moves. And you carry on. And there are two conditions which, although satisfied by humans and animals and plants, are not satisfied by things like the cow. And that is that it grows. What you don't have is that you buy a Toyota Yaris and you feed it petrol and you polish it and clean it and so on. And you find that 5 years down the line it has turned into a Mercedes. That doesn't happen. A Yaris remains a Yaris and it remains the size it is. But living things, they grow. And that is the first thing. If you look at the dictionaries, most of them give that as the first condition. They call it Kuvat-e-Namya. The characteristics which is found in animals and plants, and that is that they grow. But isn't it interesting that the Holy Quran gave that as evidence of something being living 1500 years. And you see that this is the sad thing, that all we do is we just make great claims about the Holy Quran and so on, but make no effort of justifying them by research. And it is the West. The Holy Quran gave a definition of a living thing. And independent of the Holy Quran, the West set out, the scientists, the biologists and so on. And in fact, a few years ago, we had a big debate in the West about when does someone die? Because when the heart stops, the body still continues to function to a degree. Although the heart has stopped, some people continue to breathe, for example. Brain activity is there. I know many people will laugh at this, but the point is this: brain still has oxygenated blood in it, and it can function. And of course, gradually, as the brain and other parts of the body run out of oxygen, after the heart has stopped, that they begin to die. But the point I was making was that many years ago, there was a similar debate about what's a living thing. And I'm not saying these people looked at the Holy Quran, but by independent research, the conclusions they came to, that a living thing must exhibit the following characteristics. Must be able to procreate. It must grow. It must move. It must need nourishment. It must excrete waste. I think maybe there's another one which escapes me at the moment. But these things, these characteristics, were already in the Holy Quran. And the right thing would have been for the Muslims to say that hayat, that life, this is its definition. These are the characteristics that something must display to show that it is living. But we didn't. And others went and then did what Muslims should have done. But another interesting thing is that we have not bothered to do any research in the qualities of different forms of life. Dogs and cats and so on. Because one of the characteristics of life is to be able to feel things. Now, do we have evidence that animals feel things? In fact, we have a hadith from the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that someone was slaughtering an animal, and other animals of the same species were watching. And the Holy Prophet went by, and he was very angry. And he told the man not to slaughter this animal in front of others of the same species. And he said that, take him to one side. And he said, do you think that they do not feel? So this is another characteristic of living things, that they feel. And if the Yaris I was talking about ran someone over, the Yaris wouldn't feel anything, even if it was dented and so on. He wouldn't feel upset that it's run over, whoever. But on British TV, there is an advertisement of a tiger, and it has one leg trapped in a trap. And those are really horrible things, those traps, because they're made of metal. And when some living things, puts an arm or a leg, then the trap closes and digs in to the animal's leg. So they have a video of this tiger that has a leg trapped in one of these traps, and it's lying there, it can't move, and you can see the tears running down the tiger's face. Isn't that amazing? But something even more amazing was shown in a television documentary, that somehow a lioness befriended a lamb. Now that lioness knew that other lions would want to eat it, and it used to stand guard over that lamb to make sure it didn't come to any harm. But one day, when she was gone, other lions attacked it and they killed it. And the video showed when the lioness came back and saw what had happened, it cried. It put its head, its face, on the lamb's carcass, and there were tears running down its face. And there are many examples. I know of an example where the owner died and the dog went and sat by the grave and put his face on the grave and refused to eat or drink and stayed there for about 2.5 weeks until it died. It would not move. If you dragged it away, it will go back. So you see, that shows a number of things. That shows that we think we have intelligence and so on, but these animals, they also have intelligence. Obviously, the Holy Prophet himself said this. But these examples, like with this dog, it shows that the dog realizes what's happening and feels. And there are many amazing things about non-human animals that we don't appreciate. These days we have coronavirus, and if you go to another country, you have to take a test and all this kind of thing, and you might have to be isolated in a hotel, etc. And customs in United Kingdom, they use dogs to try and catch heroin and opium and cocaine smugglers. So the dog can tell from the smell of something wrapped up that it is heroin or whatever. And this is why, to mask that smell, many smugglers put heroin and so on in things like boxes of mithai and all this kind of thing. But dogs still differentiate between the smell of the drug and perfume or whatever. So they decided to use dogs to detect whether these people have coronavirus. And the dogs are correct 94% of the time. An officer goes down the line with the dog. Wherever the dog barks, they stop. They ask the person to take his shoe off and get the dog to smell the socks. And from the smell of perspiration absorbed in that sock, the dog can tell whether this person has coronavirus or not. And by this smell, dogs can also detect some cancers. What I'm saying to you is, we haven't even got to the life in the hereafter. The life of this world is so fascinating and so complicated. And there is so much that we have to learn about the life here. But we're neglecting it. The Holy Quran and the Holy Prophet, they gave us guidance on these things. Now, the Holy Quran, the Holy Prophet said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, don't you realize that animals feel? And rather than just take it at face value and leave it and so on, someone should have done a huge amount of research. How do animals feel? How much do they feel? How do they express their feelings of fear or whatever? But we didn't do anything. But I reiterate my point, and we'll end with that others investigated to find what is the criterion for describing something as a living thing. And they did this independent research, and the criteria they came up with is actually given in the Holy Quran. So, with that, and with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, may Allah guard the whole of humanity and keep everyone safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and goodbye.